Welcome to Mr. Chalk's Revision Tips. In this video, we will look at the transfer of energy, pyramids of biomass, and Sankey diagrams. So, just to recap on a few bits before we look at the transfer of biomass. So, an ecosystem is the interaction between a community of living organisms and their environment. A community is two or more organisms. An ecosystem is the interaction of two or more population within this environment. So producers are organisms that make their own food for using energy from the sun, right? So they're going to generally be plants that produce their own food via the process of photosynthesis. Consumers are organisms that eat other living organisms. Primary consumers eat plants, secondary consumers eat primary consumers, and so on. Omnivores, so an omnivore is an animal or a person that eats both plants and animals. A herbivore is an animal that feeds only on plants. Decomposers in an ecosystem are organisms whose ecological function involves the recycling of nutrients by performing natural processes of decomposition as it feeds on dead or decaying matter. And carnivores are those that eat meat and eat other organisms such as herbivores. A pyramid of biomass is a more accurate indication of how much energy is passed onto each trophic level within a ecosystem. Biomass is the mass of living material in each organism multiplied by the total number of organisms in that particular trophic level. So the biomass goes from one trophic level to the next, just like the amount of energy. So the bars will always get narrower towards the top. And it can be difficult to get valid data for the pyramid because measuring the dry mass means that you need to remove all of the water from an organism. And an organism may belong to more than one trophic level, so cannot be easily represented by a single bar. So if we're looking at what sort of organism we always find at the bottom of the pyramid of biomass, it's always going to be a plant. And if we're looking at where we'd find herbivores, they would always be primary consumers. Energy is transferred along the food chain from one stage to the next, but not all energy available to the organisms at one stage can be absorbed by the organisms at the next one. So the amount of energy decreases from one stage to the next. So in a food chain, only around 10% of the energy is passed from one trophic level to the next. The rest of the energy passes out of the food chain in the following ways. So it can be used as heat, it can be used in other life processes such as movement, or it could not be absorbed and come out as feces, which would then be passed on to decomposers. Sankey diagrams are a specific type of flow diagram in which the width of the arrow is shown proportionally to the flow quantity of energy that's moving through it. Sankey diagrams summarize all the energy transfers taking place in a process. The thicker the line or arrow, the greater the amount of energy involved. So when drawing a Sankey diagram, the arrows pointing down always represent energy that is being lost. The arrow that points forward along the top represents the amount of energy that is being passed along to the next organism in the food chain. So, a food chain includes things like red kites eating field mice. The total biomass of the red kites is less than the total biomass of the field mice. If we're looking at giving reasons why, some of the reasons might be energy is going to be lost through respiration, through ingestion or feces, or there might be inedible parts of it. So, for instance, the bones would probably not be eaten. And in an ecosystem, it is difficult to know the exact number of organisms. If we're looking for a reason why, it's because organisms quite often, if they're animals, will move around. so either won't be counted or could potentially be counted more than once.
Thanks for watching.